Okay, well, welcome everybody to the MACC Policy Board meeting. Today is Monday, June 4th, and we're meeting at the Riley Fire Street Station. We'll start out by introductions for the record on my right.
Steve Redmond, Michigan Department of Transportation.
Mike Fatui, City of Holland.
Joe Bauman, Ottawa County Board of Commissioners.
Kevin Kleinstra, City of Zeeland.
Brett Nykamp, Zeeland Township.
Terry Hoffmeyer, Laketown Township.
Ken DeWeer, Fillmore Township.
John Kleinexel, Ottawa County Road Commission.
Todd Walters, Olive Township.
Terry Nienhuis, Holland Township.
Jerry Hunsberger, Park Township.
David Vangenhall, at large number.
Elisa Hookwater with the MACC.
And Pankaj Rajadhyaksh with the MACC. Our first item is just review and approval of there's 2 minutes. We had a special meeting and the MACC meeting before that. If there's no changes or corrections, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Support.
By Terry and support by John. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, I think we completely forgot you guys. But, yeah, if you don't mind actually holding off just 1 second, and then I'll have you guys introduce yourselves. We've been through a lot in the last couple months with the transition. And I don't think I've ever been shy in telling the group that, we have a very good team that works at the MACC. And for the small team that we have, there's certainly a lot of results that get delivered. So, I'm just very proud to be a small part of this group. And so what I'd like to do is actually, if you guys don't mind, and with the transition, all of these guys, Elisa included, have really put in a lot of extra work. They've done things that go beyond their normal job description, which is the kind of employees you want. And so if you don't mind standing up, introducing yourselves, including Elisa, and then I'd just like to give them a round of applause as a small token of our thanks.
Kelly Howard, I'm the Watershed Project Manager. I'm Claire Thompson, I'm an intern at the assistant.
Carolyn Olstad, I am the Program Assistant. I work with both watershed and transportation departments.
And I'm Rob Venk, Agricultural Technician with the MACC.
And you know me, I'm Elisa Hookwater. I'm the Transportation Program Manager and serving as Interim Director.
Thank you very much. So now that I've softened you up with that pitch, there's a small administrative matter that just needs to be taken care of. Steve was being proactive, and since Steve's not here, I'm going to throw him under the bus a little bit. Steve was being proactive, knowing when he was leaving. He had all the staff reviews done. Typically, he then recommends a 3% pay, and our pay cycle renews in May. It's not in line with the budget year, but the pay raises are reflected in the budget. And we wanted to just talk about it in executive committee, but it was certainly not my intent. But apparently the message that went to the staff was that their pay raises were frozen till a new executive director was selected. And this is not typically something that would come to policy, but since Steve's not here and we have an interim director in place, I'd like to make a motion to approve those. These already in the budget for this year. The gross increase in pay as a result of that would be it's less than $6,500 annually for everyone. And so I'd just like to make a formal motion that we give the staff what was supposed to happen in May, and I take responsibility that it didn't happen when it should have, so.
You're making the motion? You're making a motion,
I'm making the case and I'm making the motion.
is it 3%?
Yeah,
You
3%.
didn't say that, did you? Maybe I missed
Oh,
it.
sorry.
Well, I support the motion, if you make the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, any opposed?
Well deserved.
All right, we don't have any members of the public here today for comments, so we'll turn it over to the watershed project updates. And I believe that Kelly and Rob have the stage.
Start out with a little tag team presentation, so we'll have to pass the mic back and forth. We wanted to start out with in the watershed project updates today with a kind of an overview of the Project Clarity update that was presented on May 24 at a breakfast at Boatworks. Some of you in the room were at that, but not all of you had a chance to be there, so we wanted to just kind of hit some of the highlights on that and then also kind of expand upon the MACC's role in Project Clarity. So just to kind of start out with, this map shows kind of Project Clarity in its total so far in terms of where projects have been installed. This is all types of projects, including the wetland restorations, the farm best management practices, and some other activities that have occurred in some of the urban areas. And then just kind of visually, oops, there we go. One of the first goals of Project Clarity was land acquisition and then wetland restoration to hold back some of those floodwaters, filter, improve that water quality before it heads down to Lake Macatawa. So the Project Clarity certainly has been successful in acquiring some land and installing some pretty significant wetland restorations, working with various partners. So I can just point out some of them here. This one here is the most recent, in partnership with the Michigan Department of Transportation. They paid for that wetland restoration in its entirety. This is where 196 and M40 come together, and that historically has flooded. So this wetland restoration here will help alleviate some of that flooding, and hopefully MDOT won't have to close the road so much because of that. So that was just completed last summer. And then this is the Middle MACC restoration. So that is near Poppin Woods, south of Adam Street, kind of in that by the highway where the highway exit is there. I forget the size of that property, but that one's a little bit older. But again, it's taking floodwaters from the Macatawa River and letting that water settle out. And then the bottom here is a couple pictures of the Hayworth restoration. So again, a very significant restoration paid for almost in its entirety by the Hayworth Corporation. So a lot of these projects have gone in so far. The Middle MACC property was paid for primarily through a Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant. So the majority of the wetland projects have been funded through other means. Certainly Project Clarity funding has supported those projects, but the majority of the funding has come from third parties because of partnerships or grants that the Outdoor Discovery Center was successful in securing. And then the Hayworth wetland is also a wetland mitigation bank, so developers that are looking to purchase credits for wetlands that they may destroy in the process of development can buy those credits from the bank instead of having to build their own wetland. And then Project Clarity is financially benefiting from that in the long term and kind of recouping some of those costs and putting those monies into a maintenance fund that will help maintain all of these areas. So that was the wetland part, and I'm going to turn it over to Rob to talk about some of the ag stuff.
Sure. Okay, well, I wanted to touch on a few of the ag projects and things that are going on with Project Clarity. You may or may not know, my role with Project Clarity is to serve as a technical assistant to the Project Clarity Ag Committee. Many of the farmers that they've been working with have come to me now and have been working through me, through the MACC, with Project Clarity and Outdoor Discovery Center. So I believe we've which one's the pointer here? There it is. I believe we've shown this map to you before. This is, in the white is the urban spaces. This hash marked color green is going to be parkland open spaces. You'll see a couple of the dark green here are some of the projects that Kelly just highlighted that Project Clarity has done. Hayworth being right here to kind of orient you. The yellow color shown here is the available agricultural land within our watershed. And this green here is every agricultural piece that has had a best management practice placed on it. When Travis spoke, he misspoke a little bit and said that we had 25% of the available land covered. That's not entirely accurate. The 25% that we refer to is just in the Peters Creek area right here. And I'm not sure on the total overall percentage. We'd have to run some numbers and get a new number for that. There we go. A couple of the projects that Project Clarity has done here in the last year. Grass Waterway, this is actually in Zeeland Township. These two right here together. Cover crops here, Holland Township. This is right across the street from Zeeland West School there. You'll see this is the interseeder. This is the dike ice machine here that they're planting cover crops in between these corn rows with this machine. It's an air-powered machine that blows seed out through the booms and drops the seed down onto the ground. Two-stage ditch over Eisel Township, and this is gypsum. A lot of talk recently about gypsum being applied. There's about 100 tons laying here on the ground, ready to be spread. The number that Travis talked about was 51 farms. This, probably more accurate to say 51 landowners, farmers. Not everybody that we've done projects with Project Clarity has been a farmer. Some of them have just been landowners and they have tenants that farm their ground. This 18,000 acres is acres that are under contract, not necessarily acres that have had a best management practice on them. If we can hit 18,000 acres by the time we're finished, that'd be huge. Weather dependent, a lot of it. A lot of the gypsum that we've contracted hasn't been spread yet. We've had wet springs, wet falls. It's not always easy to get out on the fields. Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay with this. A couple more pictures here. A couple of our BMPs that are being funded through the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Hard to see here. These are some newly planted cover crops. This one here is in Olive Township, and here we're in Over-Eisel here, and we've shown this one before. This is the Waskob that was done last year. Waskob and adjoining Grass Waterway down in that area. So this past February, this was on February 14, we had the Project Clarity sponsored a lunch, and we had David Brandt from Carroll, Ohio come to speak. And I need to clarify, if you guys follow Hope College Soccer, their new soccer coach is also Dave Brandt. This is a different guy. So this guy is Dave Brandt. He's a farmer from Carroll, Ohio. He's a big proponent of multi-species cover crops and no-till. He travels around the U.S. and talks to guys about soil health and different things like that. One of the interesting things I find with Dave is he's been no-tilling on his property now for over 30 years, no-till and cover crops. In that time, the soil structure has changed so dramatically that the USGS is coming back in to reclassify his soils. So it was a great lunch. We had, I think, our best attendance ever, right around 76 or so people were in attendance there. Here, I'll pass it back to Kelly.
Question on that, reclassifying, is that for what they're going to consider prime farmland and non-prime farmland, or not so much?
Basically with the soil structure, he's raised the organic matter up in the soil so much, and it's just overall changed the clay structure of the soil. So not necessarily from reclassifying or zoning, but from whether it's a clay loam to clay sandy loam, it'd be in the distinction of the soil properties.
All right, so another big aspect of Project Clarity has been public education. So hopefully you've seen some of these signs around. This one happens to be at Sanctuary Woods in Laketown Township, which is a lovely area if you haven't been there before. And so these have been installed at various locations, at Greenway Partners, so probably a lot of you have them at properties. There's one in the city of Zeeland at the Pawpaw Footbridge, because we worked on a project there. And I think in some of the City of Holland parks. And most of the signs are fairly similar, providing the same information, but then these are meant to be interchangeable so that updated information can be put on these. The Outdoor Discovery Center has the ability to print these signs in-house. So as water quality conditions change, they will be updating those signs. I don't know how frequently, but that was the intention with these. So it was kind of a long time coming to get these all out there and installed, and that is happening. Also, on the educational front, the Macatawa Water Festival has continued to be extremely successful. So this is some pictures from our activity last year, where we had our staff and a couple interns doing a few different activities with this fishing game, and then making SECI discs. So people can take those home and measure water clarity at their own property. So we are ramping up to have Water Festival again this year at Windmill Island on Saturday, July 14. We've got some new partners involved this year. Meyer is still our primary sponsor. So we're excited and looking forward to the event again this year. And then just real quick on monitoring, Grand Valley State University's Annis Water Resources Institute continues to do monthly and storm flow monitoring of stream locations. In addition to 3 times a year, they measure water quality in the lake, and then they're also doing the fish sampling in the lake. So we do have annual reports coming from them on that monitoring. And then Hope College, being right here in our watershed, is also very actively engaged doing weekly monitoring at various locations in the watershed. And then also coupling that with some research into the bacterial communities, which I think is extremely fascinating. So that work is all continuing. So kind of where we are in terms of our progress toward meeting the goals. We talk a lot about our phosphorus TMDL, that total maximum daily load that the state placed on Lake Macatawa in 1999. And so that original document said we had to reduce our phosphorus inputs from 135,000 pounds a year down to 55,000 pounds per year. And that's a really hard number to measure. We can't really go directly measure how much phosphorus is entering the lake every year. We do that based on a little bit of data and then models to fill in the gaps. Also, estimating how much phosphorus is removed by putting in a practice is done by models. We're not measuring every time a cover crop goes on a field how much phosphorus is that really retaining in the field. We are doing our best with models to estimate those numbers. So since Project Clarity started, we've estimated that we've reduced phosphorus by about 36,000 pounds per year. So that's about 43% of that goal to get from 135 down to 55. However, those numbers make a lot of assumptions. One, it makes the assumption that a practice that is put in year 1 is still functioning the same way in year 5, or that if we've, like something like cover crops, we typically will pay a farmer for 3 or 4 years to put in that practice, and then we're assuming that they continue that. We still take credit for those load reductions, but the farmer is under no obligation to continue that practice once their contract with us has expired. So there's a lot of assumptions that go into those numbers, that once a practice is in the ground, it continues to function as it was intended to the first time it was put in the ground. So what I really like to look at better is that in-lake concentration. What does the water actually show? What is the concentration of phosphorus in the lake? Because that really is our ultimate goal, is to meet this 50 parts per billion of phosphorus dissolved in the lake. And then this graphic gives a really good illustration of that throughout the years. So 1972, that's when the DEQ really started doing some monitoring. But then it wasn't until 1997 that they started doing it on an annual basis. And then in 2006, the state went to every other year. So kind of below this line, this is all state DEQ gathered data. And then above the line, this is since Grand Valley's Annis Water Resource Institute has been monitoring. And what is interesting about this graphic, because I think you probably have all seen this in previous years, it's in the annual dashboard report. They've added the precipitation here, so these gray bars are precipitation. And I think 2017 tells us a really important story. And the story that I see here is if you look at historically, we have these high rain events and phosphorus way exceeds the rainfall. In terms of, I mean, we've got different scales here, but if you're looking at that relationship, phosphorus has always exceeded the rainfall. Until we get here to 2015. Then we start getting a lot more rain and those phosphorus numbers are lower in relation, in that relationship. So to me, that tells a story that what we are doing is making a difference. Because 2017, with that much rain, if we hadn't been making a difference, the phosphorus would be off the charts. We would have had a historic high of phosphorus. So looking at it in relationship to the amount of precipitation, we can really see that we are making a difference. Even though we're not meeting our goal yet, we have come a long way. For our watershed to have that much rain in a year and to only react that much on the phosphorus is huge. So if you don't remember anything about today's meeting, I want you to remember this.
You're telling me we had 90 inches of rain in 17?
Apparently we did.
Somebody better check the numbers.
And I don't know if that's from a particular weather station where that data came from, but.
Got to be out of line.
Well, and it's the entire year too. You're considering snowfall in there as well.
Well, normal is between 40 and 50, and that's very standard.
So just to summarize currently what we have going on. So in terms of what the MACC is leading at the moment, we have some grants from the Great Lakes Commission and the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative that we are taking the lead on. Project Clarity through the Outdoor Discovery Center is participating in those projects with us, both in some staff time and then some financial support through Project Clarity funds. The MACC has been working on stormwater regulations for several years through our stormwater committee, so that's kind of all wrapped into Project Clarity, and I think his Project Clarity has come alongside that. It's certainly encouraging communities to look a little bit closer at their stormwater regulations and has helped our cause with getting that moving. The Outdoor Discovery Center has a grant right now through the state's 319 program to do some work on Peters Creek. We are a partner in that effort and providing them some in-kind staff support for that project. There's a little bit of funds in that for some agricultural BMPs in Peters Creek, so Rob is providing some support to that. We are receiving some compensation from them out of that grant for that work. And then these last two here, the Agricultural Committee, and then looking at phosphorus removal and water control structures. We're working on those together. The Outdoor Discovery Center kind of takes the lead on these things. We are providing a lot of technical support to these efforts. So depending on the given project, the activity, we tend to look at, which one of our organizations is best suited to take the lead on a particular project based on our expertise in-house versus theirs, and then current workloads, and then we kind of divide and conquer as best suited, but we still work together on all of these projects. So we maintain our separate identities and our separate accounting structures, but we're still working together. Yes?
Question. When you work with the ODC as providing technical support and so forth, how do you bill them? Are you billing them for labor and overhead, or what's the arrangement?
We are providing all of our technical assistance in kind, unless there is money specifically built into a grant. So with their 319 grant that they have for Peters Creek, they do have funding built in to reimburse Rob for some technical assistance on that project. But like with the Agricultural Committee, all of that we are providing in kind. We are just billing them for some of the payments to the farmers in our grants. Yes.
Kind of piggybacking off that, and I certainly know Travis and Outdoor Discovery Center, we from the township give them a pretty big check every year.
Sure.
They're a nonprofit, correct?
Right.
But they're not a governmental entity like the MACC.
Right.
Okay, do they get grants
Yes,
They can qualify for grants?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the grant, most grants are open to nonprofits. Some are specific to government agencies. Just depends. Each grant has its own requirements for eligibility. Yep. So just kind of looking ahead, where Project Clarity is going, what we're planning to work on over the next few years. We have been working with the Grand Valley Water Resources Institute on a model to help us look at some target areas for future BMPs. We can kind of build scenarios and see where the best locations are to target BMP. So we're just kind of getting that fine-tuned, and we'll start using that soon. We're also looking at these engineered solutions, so that kind of goes back to phosphorus removal structures, and where are those best suited in both urban and rural environments. The stormwater regulation I kind of mentioned. And then some of the ongoing things we're certainly going to continue. That monitoring is critical to this process, so we can see that what we're doing makes a difference. And then public education is something that is going to have to continue way beyond the lifespan of Project Clarity, and we're certainly committed to doing that. And then another goal of the Outdoor Discovery Center with Project Clarity is to make sure that maintenance fund is built up. So some of the money from Project Clarity has been put into the Community Foundation with the intention of having that funding available long-term to support maintenance of especially the wetland projects that go in, because they are going to need to be maintained, keep out invasive species, clean out sediment once in a while, so that there is that long-term maintenance funding available for projects that have been installed. All right, so that is all that I have from Project Clarity. So any further questions on that? Okay. And I've got just a couple other quick things here. So the next item on the agenda is save the date for our 2018 Green Infrastructure Seminar. So there was a memo in your packet that just had the save the date. So our Stormwater Committee decided that this is something we want to try to continue this, have some kind of a green infrastructure seminar every year. So last year's seminar was titled Making the Case for Green Infrastructure. So I like the idea of continuing that naming and then just putting a subtitle on it. So this year we want to focus on our design standards for water quality. So both of our county water and drain commissioners have been working on updating their development rules that have to do with how stormwater is managed, among other things. So we are to the point where those are almost ready to be launched to the public. So we thought we would use this forum as a way to do that. And it really is, the changes in the rules are coming from their stormwater permits from the state of Michigan. But the intention is to kind of strengthen the water quality protection in those rules. And then with the seminar and even just with the rules themselves, we want to make sure that developers, engineers understand how you can use green infrastructure in order to meet those rules. So that's what this seminar will really focus on, understanding the rule changes and then how green infrastructure can be used. We also will be inviting posters to set up to highlight projects that have been installed, green infrastructure, particularly any that have been developed with the new standards. There are certain developers that are kind of trying out these new standards, and they are active in Muskegon County currently. So hopefully we can get some projects that have been designed to those standards to present posters, as well as just general green infrastructure, highlighting design, installation, and maintenance of green infrastructure projects. So then hopefully we'll have adequate time for participants to just kind of visit with those posters and learn about projects and kind of the lessons there. So we will hope to get the call for posters out this week, and then we will open the attendee registration by late June. It is a half day this year, just the afternoon, and we're anticipating registration fees will be $20 to cover the facility expenses and some snacks. We are going to move it to City Flats this year, so try a different venue. They have that the city view at the top floor that's been converted to a conference space, which is a very nice space with a great view of the city. So we're excited to be there this year. So you will be getting more information about this, certainly. And then I did also want to mention that with these new development rules, I am working with both county offices to come up with a plan to bring them individually to your townships, especially to your boards and to your planning commissions, to make sure everyone understands what the rules changes are and how they will affect your plan review process. So be on the lookout for us to contact you. We'll work through staff if you have staff at your township, but we don't have the actual document in hand yet. We need that final document in hand, and then we'll be making the individual contacts to get that process going. So any questions about the seminar?
Yeah, as far as the rules that are being developed, include stronger protections, et cetera, how were those developed? In other words, who was involved in that?
Well, the ultimate, it's coming down from the state of Michigan, the Department of Environmental Quality. So it's pretty much handed down to the county and to the cities that have stormwater permits that your standards need to meet this. So it's a certain water quality protection standard to reduce total suspended solids to a certain level, 80 milligrams per liter. So that's one of them. The second standard is it's called a channel protection standard, and that's the rate at which water is released from a property so it doesn't cause harm downstream, so you're not eroding the receiving channel. So those are coming down from the state of Michigan. So our local, like I said, the cities, Holland and Zeeland, are having to deal with this as well as the counties. Right, it's the counties reacting. Plus they had just other things in their rules that just needed to be cleaned up. And we are between Kent, Ottawa, Muskegon, and Allegan working with the same consultant. So if you've ever seen the development rules, county by county, they look very different. They're hard to read. So we're working together with the same consultant to streamline those. So the documents look very similar. They have their differences. Everybody sets their own fees and has some different criteria. But it should streamline the process a little bit for the developers and engineers that are working in multi-counties, that they kind of know this document's going to look the same in each county, and I don't have to read it from cover to cover to try to find the same information. It's going to be in the same section of each document. So there's things that just needed to be cleaned up, and then they had to be brought up to the state standards. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so the last thing I just wanted to highlight is our summer interns. So Claire is here, one of our watershed interns. We do have 5 interns working with us currently, so they outnumber the staff right now. So we have 3 watershed interns and 2 transportation. And in both of these pictures, they lined up watershed, transportation, watershed, transportation, watershed. So same in that picture. So we've got our 3 watershed and our 2 transportation interns, and this was a day I took all 5 of them out to learn how to do the road stream crossing inventory process, and then we went to lunch. And then here are 2 of our watershed interns that aren't here today, Luke and Bethany. They are here together on Thursdays, and Thursdays are our day to do our water quality readings at Dutton Park and Holland State Park, so they are doing that for us. They will be doing quite a bit of, all the watershed interns will be doing a lot more road stream crossings with volunteers this summer, so we hope to get kind of ahead on those road stream crossing inventories. They've already been doing some mapping projects for us, and Luke is actually working on a GIS certificate, so we've got him running a GIS model for us to delineate riparian buffer zones, which I'll be bringing to your townships as soon as he's finished with that. And they will certainly be helping us with all of our community outreach activities. So they will play a big role in the Water Festival, and we'll be at Herrick Fest later this month, the Zeeland Pig Out, all these community events that we go to. The interns will help us with that. And I think Carolyn was going to tell you a little bit more about the transportation interns. So if you're ready to do that. And then she'll continue on with she's got the first transportation item on the agenda too. Yeah.
Yeah, our 2 transportation interns are Joe and Quinn. Joe is a recent graduate, I think from Point Loma in California. And Quinlan is at Grand Valley studying geography. So Joe was able to start a little bit earlier since he's a recent graduate. So he started a bit earlier and helped us with Green Commute Week, which was very helpful. So he went out, put up all the posters around downtown Holland and Zealand for us, did a lot of social media for Green Commute to promote it, and now he's helping with the annual report for Green Commute Week. And then Quinn is studying GIS as well, so he's been able to help us. Started last week on a mapping project with fire departments and looking at the emergency access timing. So we're really so grateful to have them helping. And in the future, they'll help a little bit with the Clean Air Action display, and then also with the non-motorized portions and with the long-range transportation plan. So we're very happy to have them. So Green Commute, I wanted to just show lots and lots of photos for you because that's always fun. We had a poster contest again this year. Last year we had a great turnout. I think we had about 94 posters last year. This year we had, I believe, 104 posters. So we had a little bit of an uptick. We always post them at Cross Country Cycles just down the road from our office for public viewing. And so I thought I'd flip through and show you the winners of each category. We had an elementary school category, and this is Where Will You Green Commute? And she's taking her bike out. And middle school winner. High school did a lot of graphic design. They have a couple graphic design classes in all the high schools. And so this one was from West Ottawa. In the adult category, we had someone who is a professional graphic designer. She did really well. And then we also had a special needs category this year, which was a first. We thought about that, and there are many groups that do this with special needs, and so we thought that'd be important to highlight them particularly. So the winner of this one was Art for All. It was a group collaboration on this one. Their theme was Tiptoe Through the Tulips, and they actually put paint on their feet and walked around on it. So it turned out really well, and so their prize was a pizza party for them as a group. We also every year have the school challenge. This year, again, Lakewood Elementary won. They typically do really well in this competition. These are some photos that Jenny White from Velocity Cycles took. She led a group, I believe, with Holland Christian. And so we have some kiddos behind her and all the bikes stacked up at school, which is really wonderful to see. Then we also have our employer commute challenge, and this year especially, last year we tried to use social media a little bit more. Using Instagram has been a really great way to disseminate information out to the public, and everyone likes taking the photos. And so quite a few of the employers actually went on their own Instagram pages. This is Lakeshore Habitat for Humanity. This is from a little video that they showed of one of their director green commuting and promoting it to the rest of their staff. We're excited as well, did that. So
He needs a helmet.
What was that?
Doesn't have a helmet.
He does have a, this one, he doesn't have a helmet, does he?
It's no good.
Man, we always usually are really good at censoring photos that don't have helmets. Thank you. Oh, I'll have to get on them for that one. I didn't even notice. Thank you. We can't put that in our publication then. So then the employer commute challenge. At the end of the week, we had a award ceremony. Well, it was actually the following week. It was on a Monday evening. We thought that would work better for everyone than our typical Saturday like we've done in the past. Everyone's already in town for work. They don't have to give up a Saturday. We had really great attendance at our award ceremony. And so our first winner in the mini category was Velocity Cycles, and they had 50% participation out of their team. So they won. Second place was Collective Idea with 47.6% of employees participating. And then We're Excited was a new company to join us this year. They are in the medium, or they were in the medium-sized category. And We're Excited for their first time in being involved. They had 23.29% of employees participate, so quite good for their first time. And for our large business category, Holland BPW won again this year, but it was really close. They had just over 12.5% participation from their employees. So they did really well. We also wanted to recognize some people that, even though maybe their organization didn't win, but they had some huge miles added up. So this is Scott Eisen. He works for, I believe it's Technocoat. And Scott Eisen had 116 miles that he recorded just by biking that week. So we specially recognized him and gave him a gift certificate. And to kind of go back with the commute challenge, we were really excited this year. We had 25 teams participate overall. And among that, the new companies we had were excited, but Plascor, Ventura Manufacturing, Habitat for Humanity. So those were just some of the new employers that we brought on, which we're really excited to see too. And we did want to note that I believe it was, Herman Miller, they had participated years ago, but they had kind of fallen off. And so this year they had a new push to get their employees involved. And they promoted the event through their wellness database so that employees could count their miles that they green commuted within their healthcare system so that they could get points through that. And we are going to try to target that more and more often. So a lot of those large employers have those really great healthcare benefits that way. Overall, this year was a record year. We typically have about 10,000 miles recorded. And this time around, there was 13,418 miles. So it was a record year. We were really excited. And then, after we were really excited, we then realized, too, that Herman Miller had 300 people participate out of their company, and those miles have not even we haven't seen those miles yet. So this is even more than a record year for us. We're really excited. It was a really big deal. We were very excited about that. Recharging stations, we always want to give them a thank you. They always kind of help give the extra perks for anyone that participates by getting discounts when they wear their green commute pin. We had 11 cafes and restaurants in our area participate and 6 bike shops. Yeah. Any questions about green commute? It's probably one of our favorite events, and we're excited to have it wrapped up, and we'll be in the next couple months showing you the annual report.
Well, thank you, and sounds like a lot of time and effort into that, and good results as well. So
we're excited. Big year.
Next up on the agenda, we have a TIP amendment. I think, Elisa, you're going to cover that?
I'll be covering that from here, but first I just wanted to let you know that some thought went into the presentations that you've heard up till this point. You get to see the many activities that MACC staff is involved in. And so you got to see a lot of education, a lot of technical expertise. And what I'm going to be covering isn't as exciting in terms of the photographs and the details, but it's important. And you have heard a great deal from me since I stepped into the interim director role with TIP amendments. The reason you're seeing so many TIP amendments is because we are approaching that time of year that federal funds, we want to make sure that we take advantage of all federal funds that are allocated to the MACC. So today you're getting a pretty lengthy memo with some TIP amendments. And these will be going directly to MDOT to make sure that the federal funds that have been allocated do indeed go to the MACC. So that being said, I wanted to let you know of several projects. In the memo before you, you see that there are 2 capital projects that are brand new for the fiscal year 2018. One is to replace a bus shelter, and the second is for a bus replacement. MACC Transit does indeed have the funding, but a requirement of FTA is that it be included within the TIP. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that first set of projects here. And then second, we had a request from the Michigan Department of Transportation to change the project year. That for us is great, especially when you look at this project. It's 196 construction. And it is from the county line to Byron Road, resurfacing 4.3 miles. And so basically, this is still considered new because it's new to the fiscal year 18 program, but it is a very important project. And then I wanted to also mention the multiple, okay, so in this memo, you're seeing that the first projects that I've already reviewed are amendments. Administrative modifications, though you don't need to approve those as a policy board, we as staff have always told you when we've made changes to the TIP. So in this case, there is a request by the Michigan Department of Transportation to modify the fiscal year 18 program. And basically, you're seeing some of the GPAs pulled out with more detail. So I wanted to mention this is a 196 westbound project over US 31. And you're seeing some of the details. These are design, which is to be followed up with construction in fiscal year 21. So that's what's in the notes here. So clearly something we want to see happen. And then last, 196 westbound, this is the CSX Railroad to the county line resurfacing, and that's $2 million. That's a pretty sizable project. So you'll notice that the federal funds are not included in here because these are these are all state funds. So again, it's a requirement, this is procedure, but it is important to the MACC area, and we want to make sure that these projects move forward. I've already let MDOT planning, which reviews our TIP amendments, and Federal Highways know that these are coming. So I'll be leaving a little early to make sure that this happens back at the office. So I did want to let you all be aware of that. And this is indeed an action item.
So you need a motion?
Yes.
I so move that we approve this as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Well, thank you. Yeah, this has always been something that Steve also kept right on top of to make sure we didn't lose dollars if projects got reallocated. So thank you for keeping that going. And I believe next up, you're going to be talking about the Unified Work Program?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and I will, I want to simply walk through the document so that you are aware of our program for this coming fiscal year. And I do have a resolution to read that is standard here at the MACC, that we read that resolution once action is taken. But basically wanted to let you know this document that was sent out in your packets details all of the tasks within the transportation program. And I want to make sure that you're aware that it is important that it be approved today because this is something that MDOT requires. It's tied to our budget, that it's the next item that we'll be reviewing. But that being said, this is a document that can be changed throughout the fiscal year. So today's action is important so that MDOT can then send all of the UWPs for the state onto Federal Highways for review. This is a document that's been reviewed at great length by the technical committee. They have recommended approval by the policy board. And what I wanted to also point out too is the appendix includes all of the financials. So it basically looks at all of our revenues that are anticipated for the transportation program, expenditures, and you'll notice that it's tied, again, to the financial statement that was presented. Are there any questions regarding the UWP? All right. Well, sounds like you're all very comfortable with it. There aren't any major modifications other than Downtown Holland traffic study is not included. That is to be completed within the current fiscal year. And everything else has been modified to acknowledge performance-based planning requirements. So that is all I have on the UWP.
Questions, comments? I don't know who else sits on the technical committee from here. So. You do? Okay. All right. So I know this is a necessary evil, but is this one that you need to read for the record on camera?
It is
All right.
indeed. So I don't know if you want to have a motion first and then I'll read it.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Whichever way, yeah. So motion to approve the Unified Work Program as for 2019 as presented by Lisa. If I can get
motion.
David, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So this is our resolution for the UWP, resolution of the Macatawa Area Coordinating Council, Policy Committee approving the fiscal year 2019 Unified Work Program. Whereas the MACC is the organization which has requested designation by the governor as being responsible together with the state for carrying out the provisions of 23 USC 134, federal aid planning requirements. And whereas the MACC is responsible for overseeing the metropolitan transportation planning process and making related decisions in the Holland urbanized area. And whereas the metropolitan transportation planning process for the Holland urbanized area has been certified according to the requirements of 23 CFR 450.334. Now therefore be it resolved that the MACC Policy Committee adopts the Unified Work Program for fiscal year 2019 with any modifications to the document brought to the committee at the appropriate time.
Need a motion to approve the resolution?
I would move
Okay.
that.
Second? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you for reading that.
Thank you, thank you. It's for the public's benefit as
Yeah,
well.
I know. Okay, so I think that concludes that portion of it. MDOT, any comments or updates from you, Steve, or?
No, not really. I guess I would say that kind of took a little, exception to Lisa's comments that this stuff isn't exciting. I mean, I live for it.
She just meant as exciting as pictures of people drinking coffee and stuff.
But no, other than that, nothing I've got.
Okay, all right, thank you. Did you have something to report on an MOU, or?
I did want to, to let you know that John Lanham couldn't be here today, but I did speak with him on the phone this morning, and he thanked us for submitting the MOU, which you all approved in May. We've had some pretty heavy transportation items on our agenda. The MOU's in MDOT's hands, under review, and the other piece that was required by our federal planning rules is the TIP revisions that you all approved as well. So MDOT is, once they're finished reviewing it, they'll send it to Federal Highways. But we're in compliance with our federal planning rules, which is a very good thing. That means our federal money can continue to flow to the MACC.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe the next item up on our agenda is the fiscal year in 2019 budget. And Lisa is going to bring us up to speed on what we're proposing for now.
Thank you. All right. Well, first of all, I wanted to let you all know that there was a typo in the memo that was sent to you. It is the proposed fiscal year 19 budget, but the column had not been updated, and I used a template. It says 18, and it is indeed fiscal year 19. And before you have a revised copy, which is both corrected with that typo that has been corrected, and it's slightly easier to read. The font is just a little bit larger. So I did want to highlight to you the budget as it currently is presented to you. Has revenues estimated at $880,375 and expenses at $935,899. So we've mentioned this to you before, and we've gone through the different strategies to balance the budget. And so I have in the past informed the policy committee, and again want to remind you that the recommendation is to access retained earnings for this current year, this fiscal year 19. And some of the factors that came into play one of which is a reduction in grant funding. The memo that was sent out to you lists the many grants that we have applied for, received, and some of them are ending. Another factor is that population has been flat, and in some cases even, you can see that the dues that are expected are slightly less in 19 than they were in 18. And lastly, you'll see from the memo that the watershed dues have not been increased, and I believe that they've remained unchanged since 2005. So that estimate of jurisdictional dues has been fixed for quite some time. Looking at the sheet itself, I wanted to also point out to you, and this is for your benefit, there are some portions that have been highlighted in yellow, specifically related to payroll. And line item 52 is transportation payroll. That is basically that line item 71 and 89. The differences that you see there are all looking at the executive director salary for someone who has been with the MACC for 26 years, I believe it was, considerable amount of time. So with that seniority, and then when I prepared the budget, we were working with a budget level of $85,000 for an executive director's salary. So that's what you're looking at highlighted in yellow. So basically the budget that's being proposed for fiscal year 19 is looking at an executive director that is at starting salary rather than at senior salary. And I wonder if there are any other questions. I have notes, but I'll just highlight a few other items.
I don't want to interrupt.
All right. Feel free to ask away.
Well, it just seems to me, and I'm not trying to change anything here, but it's something I think that we ought to talk about in this context for maybe a future consideration. And I called Alyssa this morning and talked to her. When you look at this and you see that the watershed dues haven't been changed at all since 2005, it just seems nuts. When we look at, we're using a fund balance. And it just seems like we should have an increase a little more frequently rather than maybe at some point in time a big increase. Just that comment. And of course the jurisdictional dues, if I recall, are based on population. And I might be wrong on this, but didn't we put some language in our new bylaws that will allow?
I don't remember the exact formula.
Pardon?
Yeah, you're right, we did. We spent a lot of time
compared to some CPI
doing some things and I don't remember the exact formula.
But the reason that these aren't changing here, we ought to take them separately, because I'm going to guess the bylaws dealt with jurisdictional dues?
Yes.
Okay, and we got to probably wait for that to be approved. Okay, so I'll put that off the side. But then why and who should be making a recommendation relative to an increase in watershed dues that haven't changed in forever?
Just from my perspective, just having looked at it from a 3,000 mile view, I think some of it was because we had adequate grants that took care of a lot of things. There wasn't a need to pass the dues on. And then when Project Clarity started, we all asked everybody to, dig deeper into their pockets, and so we don't want to. The consensus was, let's leave these dues the same if we're also asking people for additional dollars. So,
good point.
So that's where I think that's why it was.
But it is something that we ought to be thinking about, in my opinion.
Don't you think Project Clarity has kind of changed the game a little bit? And I think the fund balance was built over many years. You're beginning to see now where the issue of Project Clarity and watershed is on the table, I think. But the fund balance has been built very appropriately, so I don't think there was a sense of urgency at this point. Yeah. But there is something on the horizon.
Certainly something to look at. But just to answer your question,
I don't understand. The 3% we approved today is based upon what fiscal year?
It's built into the budget. 3% is considered for staff increases.
Effective when, though?
I
What's the
think
date?
around May 1st.
Right.
So
Early in spring.
the
What's
way,
your fiscal year, though?
Fiscal year begins in October, but the budget has been designed so that it coincides with our annual reviews, which are typically in May.
So you don't get your increase until May, although the fiscal year is approved
Correct.
in,
Right.
yeah, so it's a little odd, but yeah, the first half, basically the first half of our fiscal year is going to be on one pay scale. The second half on another, and then that overlaps into the first half of the next year. We can talk about realigning that, that's just how it's been, and, yeah.
So
But
what
it's
we
factored
approved
in-
is effective May 1,
I
going back a
believe
month or so.
Yeah.
And, okay, I got no problem
Yeah.
with it,
I don't
think
have
it's
a problem
confusing.
either, except
It's confusing, yeah.
it's confusing.
whenever we approve the director's salary increase, I specifically would ask the question, does this also, inflationary increase, apply for all other employees? And the answer was yes.
Yep.
I never made any assumption any differently than that's what we were approving as a budget. So today seems like it kind of came out of the, it was simply, my assumption is by asking the question, all employees had the same annual inflationary increase.
And there was a question that was asked of me earlier today, and that was regarding the fund balance. So I did want to let you know that I looked into it, and the amount is, I believe it's $790,000. And the reason that is that it's a rainy day fund. I think that historically the MACC has tried very hard to have at least one full year. So that is not, it's a pretty significant amount, which Chris Brown, who's our finance manager, he and I have talked at great length about that, and he felt very comfortable with the amount we have currently, as well as the use of those funds to balance the budget for fiscal year 19.
And just to clarify, I called and asked her that. That figure is the unrestricted. In other words, because there might be a bigger fund balance, but some of it's reserved or restricted to specific things. So this is the on-reserve available, right? Thank you.
Well, regardless of the fund balances, it's unrealistic to think that jurisdictional dues and watershed dues are never going to go up. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if we have a problem with our water and sewer rates, we increase them.
Yeah, I know. I live in Holland.
What's your address?
But I'm not complaining.
But it's time.
Yeah,
You
it
just
is.
have to accept
Yeah,
that.
you have to.
These have to change.
Yep, nothing's cheaper nowadays, food, gas, whatever.
Well, something ought to be reviewed.
Yeah.
I think your project clarity context, though,
Yes,
is important.
yeah, yeah.
Because some of us are giving significant dollars to that,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that this couldn't change.
Well, at the time, I think because it wasn't an issue at the time with watershed funding, and I don't think people in the mood to get asked twice, so that's all. But yeah, going forward, we're all happy to revisit that, so thank you.
So this is an action item, so that we can move forward.
Okay, so any more questions or discussions about the budget for now? Okay? Yeah, sorry.
Do you have a threshold that triggers increases or anything? You said you got your reserve, you're at a year reserve. Do you have a certain level before you start panicking? Or has that never been set? Because you're below your year right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been in a very good in fact, it's rare that we even need to access those funds. So,
The question was brought up earlier, and I think it's prudent to have that discussion. But if you're a couple $100,000 below your operating level, maybe sooner than later, before you get too far down the road. Just to reinforce what was said across the board.
yeah, that's a good point.
And maybe, is there potential for additional grants there in the near future, or don't we know?
You know, that is something that we've talked about at the staff level, and we always have our eyes open for new opportunities. I can tell you that in the transportation department alone, there are a lot of great opportunities with the partnership between health and transportation. So, yeah, it is.
So that possibility exists even for this
Certainly.
next fiscal year.
It does.
Okay. So I think we need maybe a motion to
I'd move we
accept the budget as presented, okay?
for fiscal year 2019.
Thank you. Supported by Joe, or Kevin, okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes, thank you. And then I think we have administrative issues. Elisa, you're up again.
Yeah, I have just two things quickly to review with you. First of all, a combined summary budget comparison. And I did want to note that we are 58% of our budget is right on for this time of year. And you'll see that of the total government funding, we're at 44%. Total revenues are at 60.7%. And I really don't have much else to say. I mean, we're right on where we need to be at this time of year. All of our bills are paid, which is a great thing, and everything is moving along quite smoothly for this time of year. So
We'll have some more projects that go in and out of the MACC.
that's correct.
By end of the year.
Are there any questions about the current statement? Okay. And then the last item I have is the executive committee report, and I did want to just give you a few of those highlights. We met on May 14th, and basically one of the things that we identified as an urgency was the M231 resolution. So I did want to thank all of you that came to our special meeting on the 21st. We presented it as a draft. The group acknowledged the urgency and it decided to take action on the spot. So we thank you for that because it is important. And then I wanted to just make you all aware, those who didn't attend the meeting, the Emergency Access Project was switched to fiscal year 19.
Laketown Township.
For Laketown Township, that's correct. So, and then in its place, 64th Street, and that has been, we went ahead and sent all the documentation to the Allegan County Road Commission so that Craig Atwood, he said that he could, once I got the paperwork to him, he only needed 3 days to act on it because he's already been, moving everything along. So again, when it comes to federal funds, these are super important to make sure that staff is responsive quickly, and we're thankful that we're able to take action. So the last item I wanted to just mention is performance reviews, and before Steve left, he did indeed sit down with us, but we have, in the last few years, we've established every 3 months we put together our goals. So we decided to postpone the 3-month review until after the executive director position was finalized. So with that, I wanted to just let you know that it has been a great honor to serve as interim director. I have seen incredible expertise on the part of our staff, and I hope that you had the opportunity through today's meeting to see that. We have just an incredible staff that did indeed, over the last few months, step up to do so much more than that was in their job description. And you can see as well from the presentations that not only the technical support that they're able to offer, which I hope you can recognize as a real value to your membership, but the partnerships that we have been pursuing is such a great thing for a small MPO. John Lanham isn't here today, but one of the things he's often said to me is the MACC is one of the smallest MPOs in the state, but they do TMA work, meaning that the level of our workload is what some of the big guys do. So it makes us feel good to hear that.
We
So-
should be, and we're very proud of the groups.
Thanks.
Well,
That's all I
thank you.
have.
Thank you for your service as interim director. Appreciate it very much.
Well, it's been my pleasure. So with that, I'm going back to finish up the tip work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you're
it.
welcome.
There you go. Pass it around.
Are we ready for the search committee report?
Yeah. So our next item up on the agenda is the details and recommendation from the search committee. Before we get into that, I want to thank, obviously, all the applicants, and especially the final two, for all the work they did, and the search committee itself, but especially Jerry Huntsberger. Jerry has put in an incredible amount of hours, I'm sure, over and above other things that you have to do in daily life and work, and shown a lot of leadership in organizing it. I think he used Ottawa County resources very well. And then also David, who's no less busy than any of us in looking through the employee handbook, and there's things that offline someday we'll go through and figure out what needs to be updated. But so thank you everybody, but especially Jerry and David for all the extra work. So I'll turn it over to Jerry. Thanks.
And I'm going to say what I was going to say, because I want to thank, we had a phenomenal committee. It was real talent trust, a balance of good thinking, experienced people. We had a committee of 6, Terry, Kevin, Plunkage, David, Jim Story, and myself. I think we worked well together. We filled in blanks for each other, asked great questions. It was a good process. We had 38 applicants, and I also want to say before I forget, Al Vandenberg letting us use his Human Resources Department. We did that at Park Township about a year and a half ago. We were very impressed, and I continue to be. We're fortunate that we have a county government that is there to help us when we need them. And particularly Jake Vanderkook, who was assigned. Marcy, his boss too, behind the scenes, but Jake was the on-scene guy, really did a good job. And I'll make sure that Marcy and Al hear that. We had 38 candidates. I think we had some excellent candidates. We went through, we intended to interview 5. One dropped out the day before. The other 4 I think were excellent. That included, by the way, our internal candidate who was our interim, Elisa. We certainly did our due diligence in preparing questions. First and foremost, the posting, the position profile, whatever, which I think was well received and represented us as a professional organization. And I think that's why we got the quality candidates we did. We, as a committee, decided to make sure that we, for finalists, obviously for our internal candidate, we didn't have to do a background check, but did a very thorough, and that's 90% complete. I talked to him again today, I talked to him yesterday. Everything that's come through, that his name is Bill Glenn. Kevin Kleinster gave us his name. He did some work for the city. He's a retired FBI agent, and he uses other retired FBI agents to do background checks, do credit checks, reviewed his personnel file. Ottawa County Human Resources, Jake also did some on the references listed on the application. Everything without exception that we've gotten back is not only positive but glowing. Okay, and that came from both Mr. Glenn and from Jake. You have a handout from the committee. It's a recommendation. We certainly are fortunate in the person that we're recommending. We feel that it's the right person to lead the MACC into the future, and that's not to the detriment of any other candidate, particularly the other finalists. You were all invited to those interviews, as were any member of any other MACC committee. Some did come, and we appreciate how busy you are. We also had 6 good people from this committee on doing the review. We went back and forth, came up with a recommendation that we did based on lots of factors, but also based on the fact that we feel that we have some potential that can be actualized. Tim Berkman, by the way, who has not only accepted the job, he has signed off on the form you have. I asked him to do that. The recommendation on the pay and the benefits. I want to make sure that if you approve this today, we don't go back to him and he says, you know, there's one other thing. There is no other thing. I need to be specific, and I talked to Elisa this morning about the budget, and she touched on it very briefly. The approval of this position in the recommendation you had before you will require a budget amendment of about $12,000. The budget that was put together months ago was, as she stated, to bring somebody in at the very bottom in the beginning. And so it's important for you to be aware of that. We're not going to try and amend that budget today, but I think that will have to be probably at the next meeting or whatever. So it's important that you be aware of that. I think it's important that we will intend, David's been doing a lot of work on trying to come up with a contract. Historically, we've not had a contract for our executive director, and we feel that we should have. It'd still be an at-will employee, just like all employees, but spell out specifically what are the terms and conditions, education requirements, etc. The candidate being recommended is aware of that. That's going to take a little time and some work with legal counsel. Pankaj, I think, touched on very briefly. And the reason I spelled out some of the detail I did is going through the 71-page employee handbook, which includes the benefits. It includes a lot of expectations of work rules too. That certainly is in need of update, and I wanted to make sure that you knew what the benefits were, and some of them are just slightly different than what's in the handbook, but the handbook, and I talked to Steve a couple times, he's been very helpful, and I'm sure he will continue to be. That handbook and the actual practice today don't necessarily jive on everything. So, but what I've got spelled out here, I'm comfortable. I've talked to Steve, I've talked to Elisa. Carolyn, by the way, was phenomenal in helping me on lots of things and making sure that we're not going in a direction where we're setting a whole new standard here. I'm comfortable that we're being open, we're being very transparent, and I'm also comfortable that we're recommending a phenomenal person. But I'd like to stop, because you may have questions, and ask any member of the committee who would like to say whatever.
I would just like to say that we had 2 great finalists, and it was a tough decision to make, and yeah, so Tim came out on top, but not to say that Elisa wasn't close. So.
Yeah.
Can you give a little description of where he comes from?
Pardon?
Where's he from? What was his past history? I didn't see anything on. Do you have any information on the guy we hired? As far as where was he at before?
Well, he's at Valparaiso. He's the city engineer, and you never got that. You know what?
I may have not looked
I
at
did.
it.
Yeah, all the resumes, I think,
Okay.
were mailed out.
Okay.
Emailed out. But
Okay.
Yeah, I think they were.
Sorry about that.
If we didn't, we certainly missed a hoop. On the finalists, yeah, the finalists, everybody that's on the MACC committee, not just this committee, but tech committee and anything else, got the resumes, the applications of those being
It could
considered
very
as
well be.
final. Okay,
If you
yeah.
know, when my
Boy, I'll
schedule's
tell you,
been
if we
late.
missed that, we really missed
Unless
it.
we
My
get
heart
someone
stopped just for a
really
second
good
there. Okay, sorry, Todd. But anyway, his background, he's been with the city of Valparaiso now for 8 or 10 years. He was in private sector before that. That employer was also talked to. The mayor, the city manager of Valparaiso, and others have been talked to by phone, but also interviewed, not by us, but by a retired FBI agent from the area. Background check relative to credit and criminal background. Review of the personnel file was done physically, again, by somebody in that area. Okay.
And you know, when you hear city engineer, you might have a certain picture of someone that's just focused on the engineering. He's had opportunities to interact with a lot of different stakeholders in the city, and he's worked on transportation, he's worked on stormwater issues. So he's
With the
certainly-
MPO, he has worked with the
He
MPO
has
in that
worked
area.
closely with the MPO, so that's a good thing. He's an advocate of roundabouts, which some of us liked and some of us didn't. But yeah, so it's certainly a very well-rounded individual.
As far as the compensation, is that an amount that was offered, or in other words?
No, trust me, it was toughly negotiated. I probably spent 4 hours between Friday night, Saturday, and even yesterday with him. His pay and compensation, as he showed on the application, we thought was a little lower than that, but it did not include longevity pay and some other pay that he got. We verified. This is a slight increase for him. Certainly the moving expense is a one-time thing, but the pay is, no, that was not offered.
Okay.
In fact, we offered 2,000 below that.
Yeah, I think his comes out to just under 96 right now, so it's not a big pay increase for him.
His pay, and he also currently has a administrative vehicle that the city gives him. He's gonna have to buy a car. He pointed out, which, you know, we pay mileage, but that isn't, you know, another car. Every issue on there was discussed at great length.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What is that salary proposal compared to Steve's? When he was
I think Steve was around 94.
Steve was just under 94 when he left. 90, I think between 93 and 94.
I think that's a little bit of a slap to Steve. We're hiring a new green guy for more than what we paid a very inexperienced person. Just a thought.
Not unusual, however, and of course Steve would have been at that, but Steve had been here a long time. I understand exactly what you're saying. I hear you. But we're going to hire this guy, and that's what the recommendation is. He's certainly not going to come for a cut in pay.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, that crossed my mind too. But, you know, I think the group looked at it strategically and said, you know, who's the right candidate to do certain things in the future that maybe as a group you want to go down the road with. And sometimes you just have to spend within reason what you need to spend to get talent.
It's within the posted range as recommended by Steve and approved by this committee, which was, I think, 80 to 100.
80 to 100.
And it's certainly at the high end. I don't disagree with that.
City of Zeeland's hired a couple lately, and we've had to do the same thing. If they've had some experience, it's tough to get them at the normal pay. You have to give them a little extra, and with vacation time too. So, you know, you don't start them out at the bottom of the vacation, and they usually want a little more pay. So.
You know, I'm a budget guy, not only a budget guy, but I am kind of a budget guy. And I have to be honest, we got into this thing, and right out of the gate, we were talking about, should we have a contract? The thing is, Steve did not have a contract. Steve had some benefits provided to him, some of which we kind of knew and some which we kind of didn't know. So immediately we started to say, well, what is the compensation based on? We went to the handbook, and it's like, well, wait a minute, the handbook doesn't really prescribe what you could attract a candidate for. Then we're all of a sudden trying to figure out, okay, what's reasonable? I mean, the handbook made it sound like you can only have yourself and one other person on health insurance. You're not going to offer that to a family of 5 people. That's not realistic.
It's also not the practice.
No, it's not. That's right. It's not the practice. We have had a really good fund balance for a long time, and it's been going up for a long time significantly. There is not a crisis here. But I will readily admit, when you look at, it's our first year as a deficit, there is an issue coming. My belief personally, having looked at the candidates, is that Tim is the kind of guy who I think can help us. That's my belief, is that the MACC will be a better organization with him. I hear exactly what you're saying, Ken, but there's this part of me that says, this is a person who can help us at this time. And I think for him, honestly, he's not really making an increase coming up here. He's basically coming up here for what would be about the same. So I hear what you're saying, but I think from my perspective, it's time for us to maybe move forward and look at some other things. Financially, it's got to be a little bit of a tough sled, I think, for a while, but that's our job to figure it out, right?
I have to dentist appointment, but I'm in favor of Tim's hiring. So.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Willie.
Any other comments or questions from committee members or from the committee itself? Policy committee?
And I was on the committee from the start. I was impressed with what we had coming in terms of applications. The two people that we ended up interviewing were from day one, the two that I really wanted to see on that final interview. Talking about what we have and what comes with Tim, we're paying a little bit of a premium because he's bringing something we've never had here, and that's a registered, licensed engineer. In my opinion, we're paying a little bit of a premium for that. I'd like to think that long-term we'll benefit from it as well.
From my perspective, one of the things that really pushed me in Mr. Berkman's direction was his relationship with the Indiana Department of Transportation, both at the local office and in Indianapolis. And one project, he actually helped that department almost reduce a project cost in half to the tune of about $6 or $7 million, as I recall. I'll have to number the guy here, correct me on that. And I think that, I think going forward, that's going to be very important for us with a lot of new money coming online in the next few years from the state. Having someone who can build that kind of, not that Elisa didn't have it, nothing against her, she's done a great job for us. But I see him bringing real world solutions because of that engineering background that Terry pointed out that will help us with the Michigan Department of Transportation.
Your thoughts, Steve? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, I really, it's just such a local decision. I mean, I've seen all sorts of people's backgrounds, different backgrounds, do well as MPO directors. And there's pros and cons with whatever person brings it here. But I guess on the surface, and the little I know, I did look at the resumes and such. I can understand why it was a hard decision, but I think you've got someone who can work with us. Yep. And we're willing to work with him and ready to get going. So.
Glenn?
Well, fine.
Yes, no, maybe so.
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. If you have any more questions or concerns, now's the time to bring it up. Certainly I think some of you were able to come for the interviews, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the staff sitting in on some of those as well. And there's no further discussion, then
You really have a motion when you have a unanimous recommendation from the committee that's under Robert's rules of motion. What we need is a second.
okay, I'm not an expert on Robert's rules or Jim's rules or whoever, but okay. So if you have a second,
I'll second it.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
I'll let Mr. Berkman know his estimated timeline to be here on a full-time basis will be towards the end of July, around the 23rd. He intends to come and meet with staff informally prior to that date as they look for homes. As you saw, if you had a chance to read the thing I handed out, he does intend to live in a township or city that pays MACC dues within our jurisdiction, which I think is good.
You're not going to steer him towards Park Township, right? I'm just kidding. Or he gets the same expense reimbursement regardless of where he goes.
A 10-year property tax abatement.
But, I'm sorry.
Footnote, have we been compensating Alicia for the job she has filled in the last 2 months, and we'll be another?
That was taken care of, and it was brought up when we were having the interim position discussion. I think somebody brought up a temporary bonus. I don't know if it was 20% or something. Yeah. But yeah, but regardless, again, they've all gone above and beyond. And then thank you again, Jerry, and the rest of the search committee. It's never easy, and we had a healthy discussion, and so.
I think we had a great committee.
Yeah. All right, so I'm losing track of the agenda as usual. I think next up is members' comments. Terry, thanks for hosting us twice in a relatively short period, so. Yeah, you're sending us a bill, are you?
No, you're welcome once again. I guess like in all of our areas, construction and development is really taken off, and it's the same at our township. We, at this point in time, in dollar value, we've doubled over last year as far as building permits. In addition, we have 3 hotels and a truck stop under construction. So yeah, there's a lot going on all over the place. And our floating dock system, which is in place at Dutton Park, if you haven't looked at that, take a gander. It's quite a dock, and it's we have to attach our kayak launch position to it yet. I think that's going to happen this week, but that's what that's all about. It's a kayak launch facility, and really was people really looking for it, and I think it will be well appreciated. We're well along our way in planning a new public safety building. This is to replace our facility on James Street, which is just in back of the big lots there. For a long time, it's been too small, not only for us, but for the Ottawa County Sheriff Department, who has a kind of a substation there. They're pretty much in the basement there with a nasty spot but the new facility will be a much bigger place and much more accommodating to both the fire department and the Ottawa County Sheriff Department. And they'll have a full-time presence there going forward. So we're well on our way with that particular project. You're aware, Steve Boldheis started, and is doing quite well as our new township manager, and we're real happy about that. And we also, this morning, Doug Kuiper, perhaps you remember Doug, he was employed for many years with the chamber, the local chamber. Well, he started today as our deputy treasurer, and we're very fortunate to have him come on. Our current lady is retiring in August, so we're happy about that as well. And that's about the extent of my report today.
All right. The new building that's across from Ottawa County's.
Actually, it's across from Brands in the Ottawa County complex.
Okay.
We executed a lifetime lease basically for the property there with Ottawa County, so we're kind of working in conjunction with them as far as what the building may look like, but other than that, that's where it'll be. Yep.
And that includes the fire department.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
You bet.
All right, any other items that anyone else wants to bring up or discuss? No. Okay.
The only thing I'd like to bring up is, I've been watching that TV lately. This is way different. We always talk about bicycles, this and that, and everything else, like we did today and different things. Grand Rapids is finally sitting down and they're saying, look, you bicyclers are going to pay by the same rules as what the cars do. So from now on, I think that's something that MACC here ought to start looking at too. Because I still sits in my crawl once in a while that these they don't have to obey any rules. And it's time that they're gonna start obeying rules in Grand Rapids.
And Grand Rapids got a great education program. I passed some of the stuff on to Elisa.
You bet.
I've asked the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department a couple, 3 times, how often has a cyclist in the last 5 years received a citation for blowing through a stop sign or whatever?
Never.
They came back the next month and said, we think a few years ago somebody was cited in Jenison, but they aren't sure. But I think that's really important.
But it's a safety issue is where I'm.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a safety issue.
Well, we all need to, whether you're driving a bike or riding a motorcycle or driving a car, but it's that very small percentage again that kind of irritates everybody, gives everybody a bad name, but they need to be cited.
Okay, if that concludes our meeting for today, then I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.